Welcome to another Beacon demonstration video. Today I'm going to be taking you through how to perform a sale using the back office or head office Beacon, and this is an alternate way to perform a sale rather than the point of sale. So in the back office we have Customer Invoicing, which is found under Data Entry, Customer Invoicing there, and it takes you to a queue like this and it will show you the last 14 days of transactions you performed. So to start with, we're going to start by adding a quote down the bottom there where it says add quote. Now, similar to a point of sale, how it goes from stage A to B to C when you're performing the transaction, scanning the items, then going to subtotal, and then finally completing the transaction with the finalization. That mirrors how the point of sale has stages, except for the back office has those three stages: quote, work order, and invoice. So let's start off with the first stage, the quote. So I'm going to bring up one of my customers, and I'm going to sell them unleaded fuel. So I'll bring up unleaded. Now I can type in the word, or if I knew the stock code, I could type in that, but otherwise unleaded is fine. So I'll start with that keyword, and you can see it has this inquiry screen that lets me pick which one I want, but I want that first one there. So I'm going to pick on that one. Because it's a fuel, it also comes up and says what pump and hose is it. So I'm going to say pump 2, hose 2 for that unleaded. Now, one of the added features of back office invoicing is you can also override the text if you want to. It's optional, you don't have to, but if I wanted to just say, perhaps for example, I can do so. So from there, it takes me to the quantity field. So this is the liters, in this case of fuel, or if it was shop, it would just be units. So I'm going to say maybe 25 liters. And also the unit price. Now I can, just the same as before, I can just press enter to accept the value, but I also can override it as well, another added feature. Okay, and then from there it takes us to the price and line field. So just with your enter key, just press enter to that. You won't need to alter those. And it takes you to the beginning of the new line. So in this case, I could leave a space in it. I could bring up my next item by pressing the enter key, or blank line if I'd like to, but I can then add another item in. So it might maybe bring up one of my shop items like this one here and say, and you can see it's red there in the quantity field, just to the right of it there. That means that this item in Beacon stock on hand is 0 or negative. So press the enter key, and I can type in my value of what I want to sell them. Same again, I can alter the price and basically enter through. I can also add text to this as well. So once again, whether it's blank line to add a space, or just even using my arrow keys on the keyboard, I can just go across and say, and then pressing the enter key basically lets me go to the next line. I can also use the arrow keys to go back to the left and start my next item if I want to. I'm pretty much ready to complete the transaction. I'll just point out one more thing up the top here. You've got the description text field. This is just for the Beacon user and it's not for the customer, but you can type in internal notes if you want to. Like if I want to type in a purchase order number or anything significant. There's also buttons down the bottom there to also help you with copying an existing invoice if you've done this before. You can also print this off. You can also add the blank lines or insert the text like we've seen. You can delete lines, and also you can view comments if you've added them earlier in customer maintenance. Same with discounts and last pricing there. But I'm ready to go ahead and create this quote to begin with. So I'm going to press save. So it asks me, do I want to save it as a quote or an invoice? Now, if you remember at the beginning of the video, I mentioned there are 3 stages: a quote, then a work order, and then an invoice. You can actually skip those first 2 stages and go straight to the invoice, or if I would like to go ahead and just begin it as a quote and then evolve it to a work order and then eventually evolve it to an invoice, I can press this first one. So I'm going to go ahead and just show you this quote one first. So there is our transaction. You can see it's gray in color, and it actually says under the status column, quote. That's how we want to start the transaction. So if this was a real scenario, I would be giving the quote to the customer. The customer would say, yes, I would like to proceed with those transactions. And then from there, I would basically go ahead and start my work by selecting it. If I click on the process button, it then evolves it to the next stage, which is in yellow, and you can see it no longer says quote, it says open. So if I wanted to have a look at this in the print format, you could see up the top that it says work order, whereas previously you would see the word quotation up the top there. So by processing it, it becomes a work order. So the work is now underway. So let's say I've now completed the transaction and I'm ready to charge the customer for it. I can then highlight it again like so with my mouse. And if I press the pay button, it now comes up and says, how do I want to pay it? Now that $80.50 is the 100% of the transaction value. I can always override it into a split tender by saying I'm going to pay $20 to cash maybe, and then the remaining $60.50 goes to account like this. If I cancel it and do it again, I can go pay, and I could just put a whole 100% of the transaction amount, $80.50, against the account. But basically, once I'm ready to actually complete the transaction, I can press complete. If you make a mistake and need to correct anything before you complete it, you do always have the ability, when it's in this stage here, to right click and revert to quote. But once you've paid it, you won't be able to correct it. So it's important that you make sure you've got your item correct, otherwise you're going to have to perform a refund and then resell the item again. The refund I'll show you in the next video, how to perform a refund through customer invoicing. Anyway, back to this, select it, pay it. I'm going to pay it with a customer account and then press complete. Now once the transaction is complete, if I click off it again, you'll see it's no longer yellow, it no longer says open, it says charge, and it's in this light blue color here. So that transaction is now complete, and it will just sit in this queue here, it won't go away. So after 14 days, eventually this item will hide from this list, but you can always find it using the filter down the bottom, and you can look up specifically quote number 14 if I wanted to, or I could look up the customer account. But also you can see this transaction now is also available through back office. If I was to bring up that customer, and then go to transactions and we go okay. At the bottom of that transaction list, you'll see there's that quote. If I bring it up with the audit number and the sale audit, it just looks like a normal transaction you would have done through the point of sale, but with a bit more extra detail this way. Also, bear in mind if you pay off with account with cash or checks, you will see those finalization amounts come up when you next perform your shift reconciliation, because it's a transaction in the back office there. So just be aware of that as well. But that is really the simple nature of how we perform a sale through this back office. Thanks for watching our video on how to perform a sale through the back office customer invoicing. If you have any questions, please feel free to email us via support@beaconsoftware.com.au.